Hey, so I'm just going to show you how to get something from Nuke into a 3D program like Blender, and then get it from Blender back into your 3D program. I'm going to assume you already have essentially this, where you have a 3D track. Excuse me. Um, I'm just using a shot I did from another film right here, All Eyes. So you can see I tracked in like these floating heads, whatever. Or cameras, sorry. But anyways, so to get something from here into Blender, like I do, is I'm gonna hit hover here, hit tab, and I'm gonna search up a right geo, WRT geo, like that, and we get it. This is the node we're gonna use to create our FBX. So I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna connect it to the scene, just like that. Double click on it to bring it up. And I'm going to go to the little icon next to file. And I already made like myself a little like just folder for this. I'm just gonna call it All Eyes Test. And now the important thing about this is you want to make sure that you set the file extension. You have to do this with whenever you're rendering something with Nuke. So I'm gonna type .fbx because that's the file format we want to use. I'm going to hit open, and you'll notice since I hit .fbx, it's going to give me a bunch of options. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to just leave it at 2016. I'm going to turn off geometries and lights. This is a personal thing. Some people like to turn everything off, except for camera. Camera is obviously the most important thing that we need. Personally, I like the point clouds, and I'll show you why. I think, in my opinion, it helps to line up things. But if you just want the camera, you can just use the camera. But this is what I'm going to use. So once I have all this, we're going to hit execute, and we're going to choose our frames. If you want to choose, or maybe if you just want frame 4, I don't know, or you want frame like 20 to 50, I don't know. But I'm just going to go to global and get all 90 frames of my shot, 1 to 91, hit OK. And it's going to go, and we have our shot. Whoops, I'm downloading some footage for another film I'm working on. Let me hop over to... I've worked on too many films. Where's All Eyes? There it is. And here it is. Here's our FBX that we rendered. And what we're going to do is we're going to open up Blender. I open up through Steam. But, open up however you need to. Once you're in Blender, we're just going to hit New File. And then delete everything it gives us. So we have a blank slate. Once here, we're going to go up to File. We're going to go to Import. Going to go to FBX to import an FBX. And we want to navigate to where we save that FBX. And the important thing you want to do is on the right, you have all the settings for importing it. You want to make sure you set the scale from 1 to 100. That's just because the world scale of Nuke and Blender are different. I found that 100 is the best. So it's not like super small or whatever. So we're going to hit import. And there we go. You may be like, wow, it's a lot of stuff. I'm like, yes. So we're going to do a few things to kind of get this, everything up and running. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the first locator. And if you didn't export a point cloud, you won't have to do this. But since I did, I'm going to click on the first locator, which is just one of the points in the point cloud. Scroll all the way down to locator 195. And you'll notice that they're like super big, and we want to get rid of that. So if I were to just, select them all like I had before and scale, you see how they all scale like together? So we want to avoid that. We want to go up here to these options up here. We want to change this to individual origins. And this means instead of scaling, rotating, or whatever at the bounding box center, so at the average center point of everything, it's going to do that from each individual origin. So you notice now when I scale, each one gets smaller on its own. That's great. But another issue. Instantly jumps back to full size. Now that's because for some reason when you export out of Nuke, it just keyframes everything. So what you got to do is, since we already have everything selected, we're gonna go down here, right click, delete keyframes. So now you'll notice if we scale it down like that, they stay that way. There we go. So now we're nice and happy with our smaller point cloud. Just makes it a little bit easier to see what's going on. Now you'll notice our camera. It's facing the wrong way. Why is that? To be honest, I don't know. Whenever you export a camera out of Nuke, it goes the wrong way. No idea why. But luckily there's an easy fix for that. So we're going to go to frame 1. You'll notice it's the frame right before the keyframe. And if when you rendered, let's say when you rendered it, it was like maybe like, 200 to like 200 and I don't know, let's say like 250 or whatever, right? It will appear from 200 to 250 on here. But we just want to go right before. Whenever I make a Nuke comp, I always normalize my scenes from 1 to the end of the shot. So for some reason, whenever you export out of Nuke, it moves a 1 forward, so mine starts at 2. Whatever, it works in my case. Anyways, last restart, we're going to 1. We're going to click on the camera, and we're going to hit Control-D to duplicate. And then we're going to right-click to place it exactly where it was. Hit Control-Z. If Control-D doesn't work, because I'm using the industry-compatible keybinds, if you're using the Blender keybinds, it might be a little bit different. And, of course, you can switch between by going to Edit, Preferences, Key Map, Industry Compatible. You can always hit Tab, or I forget what the button is on the Blender. I think it's the tilde button to bring up the search. You can just search duplicate and hit duplicate objects, and it does the same thing. Right click to place it. And now we want to basically invert the camera so it's exactly opposite. But before I'm going to do that, I'm going to name the cameras. So I'm going to name the first one Original Camera. I'm going to name the second one Shot Camera. And you might notice that they disappeared. That's because there's so many locators. So as a quick tidying thing, I'm going to make a new bin by hitting this button. I'm going to go down, select all these, drag these into the bin, and hide the bin. Just so, a little organization. So we got Original Camera and Shot Camera. With the Shot Camera, you'll notice that it has the animation. We don't want that. We want to go to the Shot Camera, right click, delete keyframes. So now you see one's moving and one isn't. While still select on the Shot Camera, we're going to invert it. So it's facing the exact opposite direction of the original camera. Now you might think that we can just, get our rotation tool and just, rotate it, right? And that might work, but we want to be a bit more precise than that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back up to these options, and we're going to click on Global, and we're going to switch to Normal. And what this means is our transformation tool is going to align itself to the normals of the object. So Global will be a perfect, Z is vertical, X and Y are horizontal. This is going to align itself to the normals. And this is more easily seen if I were to add a mesh cube. I'm just going to get it out of the way, move it up here, right? I'm going to rotate it whoops, that's scale. I'm going to rotate it just randomly. Now you'll notice that on global, it stays the same. It stays the same just like this. But if I switch to normal, see how it aligns itself to the normals of the box? Now I can rotate it like that. So that's super useful here because we want to take our shot camera and we want to perfectly exactly rotate it by 180 degrees. So if I go to normal, click on shot camera, start dragging this green one to rotate, and I type in 180 for 180, it's going to perfectly rotate it 180 degrees opposite of this camera. And there we go. So now it's opposite, but it's not animated. So what we got to do is we got to click on the shot camera, that one we just rotated, and click on so click on this one first, then click on the original camera second. We're going to hit P for parent. We want keep transform. So set parent to object, keep transform. And now, I lied to you. Oops. Oh, I must have clicked them in the wrong order. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, so make sure you click the shot camera and then the original camera second. And there we go. You'll now see that we have the camera moving. And we're almost done with the setup. So once we have this and we're happy, we're going to start going through some settings along the right here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're start with this one, the properties, the render properties. First, we're going to go to the render engine, and we're going to switch to cycles. Cycles is the more physically based. It's a lot more realistic. And then we're going to switch to device to GPU to make sure we're using our GPU. If you don't have one, that's okay. Just keep it on CPU. I have a graphics card and I'd like to use it. Makes everything faster. So go to GPU compute. If you are using GPU compute, I recommend going up to edit, preferences, and then going to system, and then making sure your cycles render devices is set to CUDA and then your graphics card. Because otherwise I won't actually use it. But yeah, just check this just to make sure if you're using a GPU. Once you have that, you can mess with the quality here. This right here, you see the render to the samples. The higher it is, the more realistic. So if you're doing something that's like, needs to be super realistic, you might want to keep it higher. Since I'm just doing a test thing, I don't need this to be crazy. I'm just going to do something super basic. I'm just going to do 100. Because I don't need anything fancy, since I'm just doing a test thing. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do 512. Keeping it in multiples of 1024. 512 should be pretty simple. Next, we want to go down to the one below it, and this is our output properties. We want to set the resolution. So you want to check the resolution of your footage. So for mine, I'll check my project settings. Mine is 1920 by 960. You can see it right here. So I'm going to change it to 1920 by 960. And there we go. And then we want to go down here and we want to set the frame range. So if we click on the original camera, we can see the frame range. So mine goes from 2 to 92. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to click on frame start 2, frame end 92. There we go. And now I'm going to hit F to frame everything down here. There we go. We have all of our frames. So we're not doing any more frames than we need. Next, we're going to set up the actual render settings. So we're going to switch this to OpenEXR. And then if you want to set multi-layer, you can. You'll have to look up a YouTube video to set multi-layer. I can show you how to use multi-layer, but to be honest, I don't remember how to set it up in Nuke. In Blender. Anyways, OpenEXR, we want RGBA, float full, zip. We want to use zip compression, the codec. This is the best because it's lossless and it's the smallest for lossless. And we want to click here to set the save settings. I'm just going to save it to that same folder. I'm going to make a new folder called like all eyes test 3D render or something, Then go down here and I'm going to name the file just like all eyes test 3D render .exr. And I'm adding a little underscore because it's going to automatically add in numbers for the frame, so it'll make like a 00 right there at the end. So I just add a little underscore to make it a little bit easier to tell, and I hit accept. So now I have that set up. We're almost good to go. The next thing I want to do is I want to click on my shot camera, and I want to go to the actual properties of the camera, and you can see it's this little camera icon. So we click on that, and we're gonna get a bunch of stuff. It's gonna have the focal length that Nuke thought you're supposed to use. It's usually fine, just leave it. And we're gonna want to turn on background images, which is right here. Click the little drop down. We're gonna hit add image. Now, if you have like, I don't know, if you have like an MP4 or something of like your footage to just drop in, then boom, perfect. I don't have an MP4 or anything that I can use. I just have the footage. So really quickly, I'm just going to make a quick render of this, and I can show you how to do that. So I'm going to take my footage, click W for a write node, get out of the retime. I'm going to set the file to the same folder. I'm going to call it all eyes test.mp4. And then I want the, H.264 codec. I'm gonna hit render global to get all the frames, just render it real quick. And this is just rendering out just a really quick MP4 version of my footage, because Blender does not like using EXRs as like background images. So I'm gonna hop back into Blender, and I'm gonna click open, go back to this folder, and you can see him click on that MP4, hit open image. At this point, I'm gonna hit, I'm gonna right click and hit set active camera. So I'm actually looking through the camera, and you can see I have this, but you'll notice it's moving and the background isn't changing. So we need to set up a few settings. So you'll remember our frame start was at 2. So we're gonna set that to 2. Set that to whatever yours is. Change the frames. It just needs to be longer than the actual shot, so I just yeet it up like crazy. And you should be good to go. And now you'll notice that's nice and synced with the footage. And everything's looking good. One thing I like to do here is I will go up to the corner of the screen and see my cursor becomes a little plus. I'm going to click and drag to the left. And this is going to create a separate window. You'll see I have 2, but on this window, I can drag out. And so on this window, I can, do stuff while always seeing what it's looking like in the camera. So yeah, now that your 3D scene is set up, you're free to, add in your CG. Yeah, so let's do that right now. So just as like a quick example, all I'm gonna do is just add mesh. I'm gonna add the monkey, 'cause best thing. I'm just gonna scale him down, and I'm gonna move him. I want him to be like, I don't know. I want him to be like right here. Yeah, right here, and he's gonna be looking at the camera. Maybe we can rotate him a little bit. There we go. Maybe rotate him up a little bit. There you go. Now he's looking at the camera. And we can kind of scrub through and watch to make sure it looks good. And look at that. Looks like there's a floating monkey head there now. Yeah. So, yeah, we have the monkey. We could theoretically export. I'll show you really quickly how to set up a HDRI. In case you have an HDRI you want to toss in here or something, but anything else you probably just need to look up a specific tutorial for. But HDRI is really simple, so I'll show you how to do them right now. So on this one, or whichever, I'm gonna go up to this top left little drop down. It looks like this, and I'm gonna switch to the shader editor. You can do this on any window. The cool thing is with with Blender, any window can be anything. So I'm gonna make this a shader editor, and right beside I'm gonna switch from object to world, and you'll notice that this is the world settings. So if I hop to the right here, viewport shading. Actually, real quick, I'm gonna stay on 3D viewport here and then switch the shader editor on this one world. So you have these 4 options on the top. You got your wireframe view, your normal view, your textured view, and your rendered view. And you'll notice that if I change the color when I'm on rendered view, you can see I can change the background to whatever I want. So this is where we're going to put in the HDRI. So I'm going to search for environment texture, and I just hit tab and searched. I'm going to place it right here, and we hit open, and you go find your HDRI. The only HDRI I have is one from my thesis, so we'll use, I don't know, we'll use that one. Why not? And then we're going to disconnect this, and we're going to connect surface to color. And there we go. Here's an HDRI. You can right click and delete this guy. We don't need it anymore. But let's say it's not oriented correctly. We can fix that real quick. We want to search tab, hit mapping, hit tab again, and search coordinate. We want a texture coordinate right here. And we're going to connect the vector to the generated, or connect vector to vector, just like that. And now you'll notice if we hover over our rotation, we can rotate our HDRI to however we want it. So maybe I don't know. I'll put the Christmas tree in the back. Maybe fix the orientation a little bit. Maybe it should be like right there. I don't know. That looks fine to me. And now we can play it, and we can watch the camera move with the HDRI. Great. And we're almost ready to go. So I'm going to hover back here and go back to 3D viewport, just so I could go back to this. You'll notice if I just do a quick test render, well, there's our monkey. We're seeing the HDRI. We don't want that. We don't want to see the HDRI. So to make sure we don't actually see the HDRI in the render, we're going to go back to our render settings, the render properties up here. And we're going to go down to film, and we're going to set transparent. And now if we do that same thing, render animation, as you can see, it's just the monkey. Perfect. Yeah, so you should be pretty much ready to render. So I'm going to just make sure this is clear. Yep. And when you're ready to render, you set your CG. You set like all the frames and everything. Everything looks good. You're happy with it. Just go up to render, and you're going to hit render animation. Sweet. Now that you have everything rendered, we can go ahead and close this. Close this. I'm going to hit save. And I'm just going to go here. I'm just going to name it, all eyes test or whatever. Hit save. Oh, there we go. And we have all the rendered footage right here. So I'm gonna go back into my Nuke comp, and I'm just gonna get all this stuff and just move it out of the way because I don't want to use it, but might as well keep the same comp. So now we have the original footage. I'm actually gonna pull back the retime. No sense in making that one new. I'm gonna clean this up really quick. I'm just gonna get all this coming over here. Just make it a little more clean. There we go. So now that you have the retime, you have all your footage. What we're going to do is we're going to press R for a read node, and we're going to navigate to the footage we rendered. See, it's right here, and we're going to hit open. And we're going to get a retime node to retime this one to be the correct frame range of our comp, which should be to 1 to 91. I forgot to turn on lock range, so it changed, but yeah, 1 to 91. I'm going to grab this viewer, and connect it up to here. And I'm going to hit M to get a merge node, drag it in between these, and then select this one and put it on top. And just like that, we have our basic comp, and we can play it, and we have our monkey, and he's watching us while we work on him. Cool. I mean, it's not. Whoops, I made a copy node. It's not the most perfect thing. Track could be better, but you know, it's a test. Now, if we want to do a little compositing on him, we could, because we want to integrate him with the actual like frame. So maybe we'll get like a little color correct node. We'll get a grade node, and to get this I hit C. To get this I hit G, or you can just tab search color correct or grade that. And let's see. Looks like the darks are pretty dark. One sec. Bless me. So now maybe we want to, I don't know, lower the dark point a little bit. Oh, here's something. You'll notice it's affecting the whole image when I change these. That's because you'll notice if I select my viewer up to here that the alpha is correct, but when I change things, this is a good example. When I change things like the black point and the white point, now I'm gonna connect it here. Wow, this is not, oh, there we go. There you can see it. It's not pre-multiplying anything. So we just want to really quick get a pre-mult and add on here. Go back to 1. You'll see now I do whatever I want, only affects him. So yeah, let's just do a little quick compositing. Let's see, maybe we want to warm him up a little bit. Just a tiny bit. Looks like he's a bit dark. Let's lighten him up. I mean, the lighting's not going to look correct because I didn't use an HDRI from this one. I should have added like lights here and stuff. I don't know. Darken him, and I might get him a color correct and put on the saturation to get rid of some of that. Those like purples I was getting from my HDRI. Gotta go back here and warm him back up a bit. Okay. Yeah, a little green to counteract it. Okay, that's looking pretty good. These darks are still pretty. Actually, this is pretty dark. You know what? I'll call it good enough for government work. The other thing I like to test is I'll use these two. This is my luminance, and this is my gain, I guess. Yeah, gain gamma. The gaining gamma, sorry. And I'm just going to make sure it's kind of washing out and darkening about the same as the footage, so you can see it darkens out correctly. And it gets blown out correctly. So, we're looking good. Next, what I want to do is I want to add grain, and that'll really help composite everything. So I'm going to get there's multiple ways we can add grain. We can just, get a grain node, which is this one, and, manually set it up, which we could do, but that's a little difficult. I like to use regrain, which we can drag it on here, connect the source up to here. We can just choose like a region. Let's choose like up here. And it's going to give us grain. So you can see it gave us a little bit of grain. I mean, I'm not 100% happy with it because it's pretty light up here. So you know what, actually, I'm just going to get the original grain node. And I think I'm going to fine tune it a bit. So we'll compare. It looks like the intensity is down for all of these. Even further. There we go. It's pretty light. And that could sit here. I think the size needs to be reduced in all these. There we go. I mean, that's not perfect, but it gets the job done. Other thing we want to do, we want to get some chromatic aberration, which you can... this camera doesn't have a lot of... It's basically when the pixels, especially towards the edge of the image, get separated, but actually, I'm not really seeing any on this. So I don't think we have to worry about it. Yeah, I'm not seeing any chromatic aberration. So let's not worry about it. There you go. Now we have our monkey. And he's composited in. And she looks at it all scared. And once we're done, we can go down here. We can hit W for a right node. Let's just render out like an MP4 or something. We'll do it all eyes test final dot MP4. I just like doing MP4s. Change H264, global, and hit OK. And we'll let it render. Something I just totally forgot that we should do is, in case he's looking a little harsh on the edges, we could always, after the premult, get an edge blur. And that'll help soften up the edges a little bit. Here you can see with and without. That helps soften up the edges. In fact, I think that actually makes it look a lot better. But I totally forgot. Oh, I forgot to save this. I'll just save this real quick. .mk. But yeah, let's take a look actually, and I will just re-render it because I might as well. Global and re-render it. And it's just gonna replace the original one. Not that one. Let's go back here. And here's the final shot. Looking good. Sweet. Hopefully that helped you, and if you have any questions, feel free to text me.